Market Insight for the week of March 11th through the 15th. So we'll start as usual with the monthly chart and our top-down approach. And the monthly appears bullishly quiet, but I think a storm is maybe brewing given Friday's trading. And we'll get to that in a few moments. The only thing to note about the monthly chart is that we're overbought in the trend channel up here. You can see we're high up here. Prices overshot the supply line. This is the supply line here, and prices outside of it. So we call that overshooting it. And when that happens, we can expect a reaction, not a surprise, right? So let's turn to the weekly here. The last 4 weeks tell an interesting story. And so let's tape read it. Actually, we'll go back 5 weeks here to the first week of February. And we have right here a nice up bar closing firm, right? But on lighter volume than the prior few weeks we see here. If we go back here a little bit. So buyers were in control. We know that by the firm close and nice push up above the prior week's bar. But because of the volume being lower, they may be tiring up there. Nothing to do up at that point. As you know, we weren't making any trading decisions there or suggesting any, just observing that. Next week here, we see price goes a little above and a little below or underneath the prior week, and then closes in the middle, right? And it does so on an increase in volume. That is not bullish behavior in an uptrend. Think about it this way. Nothing has been preventing higher prices all the way up from this low here until this week. So this is some effort to go higher. We know that there's effort because the volume is picked up. But the result isn't so good. We all that volume and all that effort, and we couldn't even close over last week's close, let alone last week's high, like the rest of the weeks coming up. So this is a minor little change in behavior, if you will, right? Just something to note here. And this is the first indication this week here, first indication of supply in this recent rally from this low here. The next week continues higher, however, but it does so on lighter volume. So that's a little strange, isn't it, right? What do we make of that? What does this mean? Does it mean that there's no demand here because the volume is low? Or is it reflecting that supply is overcome? That, the supply that was present last week has now been overcome. And the low volume actually means a lack of supply. Well, the firm close said buyers were in control, but in the low volume said, and the location of that low volume, high in the trend channel, makes us wonder how strong the buyers really were, or really are at that point. And then last week, or the week before this current week, the week that just passed, buyers again push price up, right? But the range narrows and the thrust up, right? We make this progress up here and then only that progress up there on that week. So the thrust up shortens and the volume increases on this. Now note the contrast here. It seemed easy moving the market up the prior week, right? We get a wide range up, not a lot of volume needed to do that, and then it closes pretty firm, right? This week, it was harder moving price higher. How do we know that? The range narrows, the volume increases a little bit, and the thrust shortens. This is effort to go up. Again, not a great result. And then finally, this week, the last week on the chart, although the buyers bring price up to a new high, 51.93, they couldn't hold it. And so on pretty good volume, price closes in the middle and underneath the close of last week or the prior week. So this indicates that the market is vulnerable to a pullback, and that would be on the weekly chart, a weekly pullback. So a little bit larger maybe than what we've been seeing on the daily pullbacks that we had. Let's take a look at the daily chart. And we can see daily shows supply coming in on Friday in spades here. Price respected the reverse usage trend line. That's this dashed trend line. That's how we normally depict this, as a dashed line when we use reverse usage trend lines. And then price fell below yesterday's high and the multi-day or trading range high up here that was put in last week, or maybe it was put on Monday of this week. Anyway, we broke that and we headed down, and the volume suggests heavy selling, heavy distribution on the way down. I'll circle back to the daily and look at where price may go to this week, but let's take a look at the major indices before we do that, the major markets. If you recall, last week we highlighted the Dow as being the weak market in the major markets, and it continued to be so, not surprisingly, as this week unfolded. Note that the Dow never recovered from Tuesday's reaction, right? Both of the other markets on Tuesday, the NASDAQ and the S&Ps held support, right? And then started to try to rally up higher. The Dow broke its comparable support, right? That's the support level here that we're talking about. Actually broke the trend line up, right? And most telling, couldn't rally back up above resistance, this supply line resistance here. But the other two markets were making new all-time highs, right? So that was pretty telling that the Dow couldn't do that when the other markets were making new all-time highs. That was a pretty big market tell. The blue chips were just not going to participate in this rally. Let's go back to the daily and wrap up here. Excuse me. So the daily's poised for a pullback, and Friday's area of 51.93, the high here, that ought to be pretty good resistance. Higher resistance comes in, 52.90 to 5300 area. That's pretty far up there. I would think that seems like a stretch from here. So thinking 51.93 area, 5200 maybe at the upside would be good resistance. Obvious support 50.60 or slightly below that on these lows here. Now we've been down here twice already, and so if we see price head back down in here again, I would expect volume to pick up. Maybe not as large as we see here on Friday, but I would expect pretty good price action coming down. And I would anticipate this support level to be vulnerable to breakage. So we'll watch the price action for this around that support level. And if it does break, then the obvious next support is around 49.36 area, 49.35 area. And if we look on the weekly chart, we can go back to that quickly here, maybe. Yeah, go back to that on the weekly chart. One more chart back. There we go. There's a little crisscross area here on the weekly at 40. I think it's right here, 40 at 49.35 area, the 49.36 area, this here, the little weekly crisscross area. So that should hold as initial support if price makes its way down there. And it probably will take some time to get there. Well, although, we may be seeing a larger time frame reaction, so we'll see. It could get down there. So for this coming week, we are on our normal schedule. We'll have deep practice on Thursday, the 14th at 8 o'clock. Otherwise, have a great rest of the weekend and a good trading week next week. And I'll see you for deep practice on Thursday. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.